Morocco is becoming a favourite of what Brussels calls the European neighbourhood, a group of Mediterranean countries with which the EU wishes to forge stronger ties with. And it's easy to see why, as here in downtown Casablanca, the shops are full of European goods. It's shaping up as a modern economy, much in the same way as most Eastern European countries were before they joined the EU back in 2004. And part of that process is a social reform too, with women's rights constantly in the news. A recent study in Casablanca revealed that there were over 5,000 women who had children outside of marriage, with the number of reported incidents of violence against women also on the increase. But now MEPs are working closely with a new government which has made the rights of women one of its priorities. Outside of Casablanca's chic centre, for many women who find themselves pregnant before marriage, the fear of being rejected by their families is too much to carry. Some make it to a women's organisation, INSAF, just a few kilometres from the centre. Many of the women it takes are not from Casablanca, but arrived here from villages in the interior to take jobs as maids in houses of wealthy families. With no education, they often fall prey to men who promise them marriage. Their stories are often tragic, as many are rejected by their families. Fatima tells her story to an INSAF worker.
He said to me, "You're going to bring shame on our family, and we're not used to that." After that, he called me, and we got in the car, and he started to beat me. While he was beating me, a police car passed, and they stopped and asked me what was going on. I explained I was pregnant by this man, and he wanted me to have the operation. He said if I didn't want to have the operation, he would do it with his own hands by beating me.
Fatima's story is an all too familiar one of single mothers. Many Moroccans simply believe that all women who fall pregnant out of marriage are prostitutes, when in fact sex workers only make up 5% of Casa's single mothers. Nouza Scali, a campaigner for women's rights and now a minister in the new government, is battling to break this taboo and help them back into the job market.
It's very difficult to find a job with a baby. It's harder still to find someone to look after the child. However, just getting together in an association lets the women ensure there's a crèche for the children. They can share babysitting. It also makes it possible to help each other along through the difficult times. The life of a single mother is not easy.
INSAF trains the single mothers to give them skills before finding them work. But what about married women who are also being denied their human rights? Deep into Morocco's heartland is the ancient city of Fez, a more conservative, traditional town than Casablanca. Here, women are marginalised, though, through poor education and often violent husbands. We found an important project just outside the town centre, which is funded by the EU and is helping women. This project now trains women with skills, works as an advice centre, and even provides them with legal services if they encounter violence at home.
This violence is most common in poor neighbourhoods. This is due to the social conditions. For example, there's unemployment, ignorance of rights and duties, and the rate of illiteracy is very high.
It's early days yet, but certainly women are taking full advantage of the adult education facilities. Many young women in particular use the centre to learn to read and write and practice their computer skills. But there are victims. Aziza here came to the centre for help after being locked up by her husband and repeatedly beaten. She now lives with her daughter, who, despite everything, longs to see her violent father.
This is the hardest thing for me after the pain of my experiences. Now my daughter will grow up never knowing her father.
Most MEPs in Brussels are encouraged by Morocco's progress in the area of women's rights.
We have to go forward, I think, because more can be done in Morocco, but even we should try harder in our countries, in Europe, with Moroccans, to show the benefit and the commitment for human rights.
Sophie Interville is also an ardent campaigner for women's rights. We asked her in Strasbourg what's needed now for Morocco.
You need a kind of multi-track approach, as I said, the legal instruments for women to actually be able to go to court and exercise their rights. That is very important. But in order to indeed to educate people, to inform them and to change their mentality, yes, education is essential, but not only education in schools, but also, education through the mass media.
Indeed, the mass media is a good example in Morocco where attitudes towards women are changing. At this newspaper in Casablanca, where the majority of journalists are women, we asked the editor about attitudes towards women in the professions and what's at the heart of the matter.
With the taboo of single motherhood is the question of virginity. It's very difficult for a young woman to marry if she's not a virgin. Behind the successful career woman, there's another woman doing her housework for her. Women in Morocco have a double attitude. At work, they're more independent. But when they get home, they're under their father's or husband's authority.
Right now, Rabat is calling on Brussels for a special EU status. The minister responsible for human rights is optimistic about the future role of women, but stresses it's only a part of a balancing act of economic and social progress.
I believe that in relations with the European Union, we're in the same boat, which is to say the Mediterranean. Either we're going to have a balanced and harmonious development on both sides of the Mediterranean and move the boat forward, or if there's a big imbalance between the North and South shores, if the North Shore continues to get rich and the South Shore continues to deteriorate, that's going to capsize, which is to say have negative effects, not only on our societies but also on societies in Europe. We feel that the question of human rights can only move forward with economic development, because still today the main obstacle for human rights is access to cultural, social and economic rights.
European observers will now eagerly watch the women's rights dossier, while the stage is set for this summer to sign a new EU agreement with women's rights playing a key role. But some will have to wait a little longer to see Moroccan society adjust to women's new role in the Maghreb.